I had no idea that it was so incredibly beautiful.
Coming up on Frontiers, tourism in Alaska, what makes it one of the bright spots in Alaska's economic landscape.
I want it to feel like this feels, like you're out on an island somewhere, and I don't want it to be commercial feeling.
Halibut Cove, the story behind one of those out-of-the-way tourism spots that caters to those with cash to spend. Also, Kachemak Bay's new crop, why peonies and profits go hand in hand.
Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers. With challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program. With RVs on the road, cruise ships pulling into our ports, and tourists at large, we thought it might be a good time to find out what brings those visitors to Alaska. We found the Homer Spit crawling with traffic and tourists, but almost everyone we spoke with told us that they were excited to be in our state.
There's just too much to do. You cannot possibly do it all, even a lifetime, I think.
And it's just gorgeous here, and the weather's nice. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. It was 114 degrees when I left Tucson.
Well, this is our third time to Alaska, and we love Alaska.
I've always wanted to come here. I thought I might be 85 years old on a cruise and looking for my dentures so I could visit the buffet.
Glad he made it. Well, a number of the tourists told us that Alaskans themselves should get some of the credit for making the state a welcome place to visit because they're generally friendly and helpful and seem very proud to share their state. Now, if you want to escape from the hustle and bustle of the Spit, you can go to Halibut Cove, just 12 miles across Kachemak Bay, where you can find food, art, and life on the water.
Down the Narrows, behind is Moaf Island and Halibut Cove. And this land here on our left was a homestead that my father bought in the late 40s.
In its heyday in the 1920s, kegs of salted herring went out in steamer boats.
There used to be 42 salteries here in Halibut Cove.
Today, it's an isolated community with fewer than 20 people year-round. But in the summer, Marion Beck brings the town to life. Her tour boat, the Danny J, brings visitors here every day. They come to see the sights and eat at Marion's gourmet restaurant, the Saltry, which she opened more than 30 years ago.
It needs to look really fresh, and if you don't really make it yourself, it's not fresh.
All of the vegetables are grown in local gardens. Even the dinner plates are made here.
So I'm just in the process of doing a new batch that I'm gonna fire in the kiln.
The bread is homemade, so is the restaurant's famous chocolate cheesecake. So many details, all part of the experience.
I don't think it's obsessive compulsive, it's just perfect.
Are they rinsed yet? You said no?
Marion depends on Chef Adam Walker for his artistry in the kitchen. In the winter, he works at an exclusive Utah ski resort, but in the summer, he perfects his seafood repertoire. Octopus is one of his specialties, harvested at its prime. It tastes a lot like shrimp and is one of the favorites on the menu.
You're gonna go for the octopus?
Oh, yeah.
This couple is from Connecticut. Kim Stillwell, though, is originally from Homer.
It's this sort of unique, one-of-a-kind experience, you know, taking a ferry to a very small, isolated place.
I spent most of my life in cities, pretty big cities, and the sense of both combination of small town and natural beauty is just, it's pretty awesome.
As for the economic potential of Alaska tourism,
I think it's vast. We were in New York City a week and a half ago, right? And this is as good as anything you could possibly get there.
The sultry did get a write-up in the New York Times, which has brought a lot of business here. But with the state's economy headed towards a recession, there are worries tourism could see setbacks. I mean, it's hard to be optimistic right now. How come you're optimistic?
I think we have started our own snowball down a hill, and we're going to make it.
Marion says the Alaska tourism industry benefits from what she calls earned advertising. In other words, word of mouth.
Earned advertisement. It means you're not paying for advertisement. You've earned your advertisement by physically being persistent.
We found an example of that from a couple from Philadelphia who were drawn here by artwork from Halibut Cove.
I heard about it from a friend who actually purchased a beautiful painting. She said it was absolutely their favorite town in Alaska.
Speaking of artwork,
this is Jay Green's work here.
Just down the boardwalk, Marion has an art gallery. You can find some of her work here, as well as from other Halibut Cove artists. Marion says her recipe for success is to offer a variety of experiences.
Having more than one thing going is stimulating, and you don't forget it.
Tourists who stay here for several days find all kinds of things to delight them.
Okay.
Boardwalks and trails to hike, horses to pet.
Tango in the back, and then the Red Horses Parfait.
And on the water, there are kayaks to explore the cove and its wildlife.
I want them to be astonished. I want them to come up here and go, wow, I'm out on an island somewhere and this is really cool. And somebody's taken a lot of time to make it that way.
For Marion, her tourism business is a never-ending passion project.
I wanted to have the beach on the dock, a tide pool on the docks, and then creatures live inside of it when the tide's out. And it's next to my beach with the campfire over here. So it's like part of my beach camping experience.
The outdoor part of the restaurant was built into the side of a cliff to enhance what Marion believes is Alaska's greatest selling point.
Alaska is tremendously beautiful. What we have seen would take your breath away.
So with all this success, will Marion expand?
No, I don't want to expand it. I want it to feel like this feels, like you're out on an island somewhere. And I don't want it to be commercial feeling.
But one of authenticity, what she believes tourists come to Alaska to experience in the first place. Marion Beck's father, Clem Tillian, homesteaded Halibut Cove in 1948. From the age of 10, she worked on his fishing boat. At 16, she piloted boats between Homer and Halibut Cove. But art is her true passion. She paints in bright and vivid colors. Tourists visited Alaska in record numbers last year, but will that change? Up next, how a recent governor's veto could impact the industry. A Whittier business owner and the Alaska Travel Industry Association weigh in.
I just want cremation.
Cremation specialists in Alaska.
Can I have a service before cremation?
Our staff is committed to serving your needs.
I just want something basic. The simpler, the better.
Specializing in simple cremations. Whatever your reasons are for choosing cremation, call Cremation Society of Alaska, 277-2777, or in the Valley, 373-8627, and on the web at alaskacremation.com.
With lung cancer, I had some critical decisions to make about my treatments. I didn't want to lose my quality of life. Other doctors told me I would need surgery. I was concerned about the pain, risks, and recovery. I got a second opinion and found CyberKnife, a pain-free non-surgical treatment. It's the same precision, but without surgery, and in just 1 to 5 treatments.
You can continue your active life with CyberKnife. Call the Alaska CyberKnife Center at Providence Cancer Center to see if CyberKnife cancer treatment is right for you.
The transition from child to adulthood can be brutal, especially for girls. Some feel isolated and lack support in their home life. We can do better. YWCA Alaska believes our children are the future, celebrates their achievements while providing a safe place for young people to learn the skills needed to transition from child to adult. When young Alaskans are healthy and empowered, our communities grow. YWCA Alaska.
Good morning, I'm Megan Mazurek.
And I'm James Gaddis.
Well, I came to Alaska to fulfill my dream of finally working on a morning show. It's the one thing I want to do. When I got here, it was just a man and his dog. Now I've got a few more priorities, a few more responsibilities. Life has changed for the best in ways that I never imagined. I knew this would be, one of those trips, one of those life-changing ventures coming up here, but I didn't think it would be anything as fulfilling as this.
As Alaska's largest city, Anchorage is a gateway for tourism. About 2 million people visit Alaska every year. Around half of those visitors spend time in Anchorage, where there's a 12% bed tax on hotel stays. This funds most of the city's tourism marketing. In 2015, Anchorage collected more than $26 million in bed taxes, the most ever recorded. While the tourism industry looks strong for Anchorage, Governor Bill Walker's decision to veto the state's marketing budget could be a setback overall. In June, Walker announced a $3 million veto to an already scaled-back program, which went from $16 million in state funding in 2014 to just $1.5 million now. The industry says this cutback is a huge hit because of the preparation it takes to travel to Alaska.
A lot of our marketing efforts involves educating those folks, giving them a call to action, making sure that they have the tools to plan a vacation, to explain to them that you can't do Denali, Anchorage, and the Kenai in a day.
Although tourism, fishing, and mining are the state's next biggest moneymakers after oil, Governor Walker said that he had to cut tourism marketing to help address the state's $4 billion budget crisis. The Division of Economic Development says that it may be a few years before we see the impact of that cut. While the price of oil is one of the biggest drivers of our economy, tourism is also an important part of this equation. And joining us to talk about that with two different perspectives, we have Tanya Carlson with the Alaska Travel Industry Association and Kelly Bender, who is co-owner of the Lazy Otter Charters in Whittier. First of all, let's talk about some of these cuts to the marketing program. Do you think that the state is correct that it could take a while before we feel these cuts?
Typically it takes a few years. We had a record year last year with visitors. We're on par to have just as good, if not better, season this year. Usually, when you take such a big cut to marketing, it's going to be 2 to 3 years down the road when we start to see the effects of that.
So in other words, this boom is partly due to all that you invested in past years.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of efforts go in, a lot of travel shows, a lot of print, a lot of TV advertising go into enticing people to come to Alaska. And a lot of those programs for next year are already in play. They're already working on it, they're already paid for. So it'll be the year after that and the year after that that will really feel the squeeze.
Well, we see this kind of investment, this growth in tourism, and yet at the same time as Alaskans, we probably don't appreciate it enough. So let's take a look at some of the numbers here to help Alaskans understand what kind of an impact we have. Look at the jobs, 1.3 billion. Visitor spending, 1.8 billion statewide, and also money for state and local governments. You want to talk about how it all spills into the economy?
Absolutely. I mean, between all of the local jobs, their salaries going out, spending money in their communities, the tax revenues collected in each of the different cities and boroughs to help fund those regions and their local governments and projects. Tourism is a renewable resource that often gets overlooked, I think. If we lose that $105 million that it's produced for the state in the last year in an already big deficit, that's pretty detrimental. We should certainly be looking at investing more.
Well, Kelly, tell us a little bit about your business, because you're in a small town and it struggles with having enough employment. How do you contribute?
Well, everything in a small town is magnified. If you take one employer away, it's magnified. It means a lot to a lot of people. We hire 15 people in our business, all Alaskans from Whittier and Girdwood. A lot of them are students or teachers that are looking for summer employment. But we also work year-round. We actually have winter tours, and we're able to hire captain and deckhand and an office person throughout the winter. We're able to provide to the economy, so they're paying rent, they're eating at restaurants, they're buying lift tickets. So
we have some photographs to show you about your business, the Lazy Otter. Now, what is it that you offer?
Well, we do primarily water taxi, custom sightseeing, kayaking. That's the Norwegian ambassador to the United States who visited with us
So
when
you
he was
get
here in April.
VIPs.
We get some VIPs with us. A lot of photographers, a lot of film. A lot of the reality shows have been filmed on our boat out in Prince William Sound.
So how about movie stars? Do you see any of those?
We had Harrison Ford on some time ago. That is one of our claim to fame.
So when you have these kind of tours, how does that help with the local economy? Are people spending money in town too?
Certainly, they're spending money in the coffee shops and paying tunnel tolls and hotel tax and buying gifts, and then they're going home and they're putting it on Facebook and TripAdvisor, and they're encouraging their friends, come do your bucket list, come see this wilderness. There's pristine wilderness out in Prince William Sound, miles and miles without a building, without another person. People from New York, people from any city, that's really quite extraordinary.
You know, especially in places in Asia that are very populated, like Japan and Taiwan. So do you think that Alaskans, although we know our state is beautiful, we know that people want to come here, do you think that tourism is underappreciated?
You know, I wouldn't say it's underappreciated. I think people appreciate it. I don't know if people always necessarily associate how much revenue that it brings to the state. It's one of those where they think that we're giving it away to outside sources, but really we're spending it to bring more people here, to spend more money. And the ROI is certainly there. We do the studies to look at
What
the
is an ROI?
Return on investment. So all of the money that we spend, we have research to back up what we spend and what that brings back to our local economy here.
So when you have a campaign, do you feel the results from that sometimes immediately? Can you see that it's working? I mean, how do you tell?
It can be hard. So we have different ways of tracking it. Whether it's from online, which is very easy to track. Sometimes when it comes to media, television media, it can be a little bit further down the road to track, and print media as well, different ways to track things. But sometimes it's immediate, we can see the effects. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time for the image to get out there. People start requesting vacation planners. They receive them, in a year, 2 years down the road, they decide to make the trip up here.
So can you talk a little bit about how these budget cuts will impact the statewide picture?
It's going to be a very big impact, having about 16 million just 2 years ago down to just 1.5 million this year. At 1.5 million, it'll be the first time we will not be printing a state vacation planner, which also means we have no direct mail campaign, no television advertising, no print advertising. We're putting our focus on the website and drawing people to the website, along with some in PR and some with our travel trade, which are travel agents and tour operators, the influencers that bring their people to Alaska.
So Kelly, how about your business? What are you going to do? You're a small business owner. You don't have a lot of expendable cash, I'm presuming.
Sure. You know, Alaska Travel Industry Association, Visit Anchorage, they attend all these shows and they let their members and small businesses ride along with them. And that's the only way that a small business can afford to get out there in front of the people. I couldn't afford a trip to set up a booth in New York or Chicago. So it gives me the access. They do big media buys that also help us get a lower rate so that we can participate in that. So with that going away, that's really, us smaller businesses are going to have to step up. I'm sure there will be a call for that, but we have to find it in our budget. And in a small business, lots of people can relate to that.
Any ideas on what could be done in lieu of having that state money for marketing?
I really believe that we need to start educating our neighbors and our friends. They think tourism is the bus driver or the person behind the front desk, but I don't know that they really realize the trickle-down effect, that whoever we're buying our food from, whoever buying our supplies from, they're increasing their employment, they're purchasing more, and it really is, there's so many stair steps down to how many people this really does affect. When the tourism goes away, then they're not hiring as many people, they're not buying as much product.
So let's talk about some other things that affect tourism. You know, we've seen cutbacks to the marine highway system. That brings tourism. You know, how big of an impact are these other outside things that the state is ramping back on affect tourism?
It all affects tourism. I think it, especially with the ferry, we have tour operators that bring their groups on the ferry, and when schedules aren't out, you know, they're starting to advertise next summer now, and the schedule is not going to come out for the ferry until later this year. So it affects their ability to sell. They may have to stop the tours altogether. They can't count on the route being offered again next year. And likewise, I know it affects locals as well. It's one of the main modes of transportation for both Southeast and Southwest Alaska.
So, I mean, I could speak to that directly in Whittier, where the ferry terminal is right downtown. Without that second ferry coming into town, we're not seeing the people into our businesses. We're not buying the ice cream and the coffees. But it's also, a lot of the tour operators are not coming. On the other side, it has helped me. We've picked up some of the charters going to Valdez, so some of those tour operators are finding other options. But citywide, it certainly has affected us immediately, and a lot of our shops are noticing it.
So I know this has kind of been a gloomy program, thus a gloomy discussion, but you know, you are coming on the heels of a banner tourism season.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, what are we going to reap from this?
Well, you know, we definitely want to keep the word of mouth. I think that's another advertising metric that can't necessarily be quantified. The people who are here and they go back and they share their experiences, we want to make sure that they're having the best experiences possible. And I think Alaskans do a great job at that. We have wonderful customer service in the state. We're very friendly people, and people remark on that. So we want them to go back, and businesses can urge their clients to go share those stories, whether it be on Facebook, on TripAdvisor, so their friends see it and urge them to come up.
Now, one of the things we're seeing too in Alaska is sort of a renaissance of Native culture. The Sea Alaska Heritage Foundation opened up a new center to showcase Tlingit and Southeast Native heritage. We also have the Alaska Native Heritage Center here in Anchorage. How popular has this become?
Oh, you know, I put it in the authenticity. People more and more are wanting more of an authentic vacation. Being able to have hands-on experiences, really get in depth and involved in the local cultures. So I think it's very important. Any and all development within our cultural tourism sector is wonderful, and many of our Native corporations have been developing that.
And investing in it.
Yeah, Sea Lion Corporation owns the Inn at Whittier, and cultural tourism is a big buzzword for those of us in adventure travel. Trying to make it authentic and bringing the culture is an important part of the adventure.
And the fact that Native corporations are seeing this as a place to invest is also probably new money, new kinds of experiences for tourists.
Absolutely.
So, you know, do you always have to keep expanding, keep growing? You know, you can't just offer the same old, same old.
You know, I think that's what's so wonderful about Alaska is there's always a new niche. There is always a new niche. It's not like you have to get in there right now, but people are finding new ways, zip lining, stand-up paddle boards. These are all things that we have not seen till recently, but also for a long time, Alaska seemed exclusive. If you weren't an old cruiser or a severe extreme wilderness person, you thought you couldn't kayak, you thought you couldn't hike, and now it's everybody's sport.
Well, we'll talk more about tourism. We'll continue our conversation on the web. So I want to thank you, Kelly Bender and Tanya Carlson. Well, just ahead, passionate about peonies. From the garden to the marketplace, Alaska's newest agricultural crop. Why business is blooming.
The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium provides comprehensive health services for Alaska Native and American Indian people across our state. In addition to world-class care at the Alaska Native Medical Center, our work delivers health services for rural Alaska. From cutting-edge technology for the best care possible, to modern construction of clean water systems and health clinics, to health training and outreach that honors our culture, our vision is that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
Learning happens everywhere. Each consecutive moment of life slowly transforms you into who you are. At IDEA, we believe learning happens best out there in the real world. No one knows your children better than you, and no one is better equipped to connect to them, to educate them, and to guide them along their path than you. Take control of the learning adventure. Take your child's education to the next level with IDEA. Homeschooling brilliance. Visit ideafamilies.org.
There's absolutely an impact that the wish has on how you view the rest of your life. There was something fuller about my life. There is something about having the wish granted that changed the quality of my life every day, regardless of how many more days that was going to be.
I was really nervous, borderline scared at the starting line at Mount Marathon. And I had done stories about it. I knew the mountain, but these are a whole different breed of runners. These Alaska trail runners, they're serious. To look up and know, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get to the top of that, and that feeling when you get to the top, it's changed my family's lifestyle, because now we're out climbing mountains every weekend. And there's just always somewhere new to go, somewhere else to explore, another mountain to climb.
Tourism isn't the only business that blossoms this time of the year. This is the peak time of the year for peony farms in the Homer area. These big and beautiful flowers bloom during a time when they're not available in the lower 48, which has an earlier season. Peony farms are relatively new to Alaska, and those who grow them say it's been a challenge because even within the Homer area, there are several microclimates.
The higher you go, you have a later spring, so your plants wake up later, so your flowers come on later. So like our farms in town, they started right around the first part of June, and they were done by the 1st of July. We are just starting.
Ina Jones's farm is at a higher elevation. She expects to wrap up her harvest in August. Well, we want to thank you for being a part of this week's conversation. Hope you enjoyed the chance to see our state through the eyes of tourists, because Alaska is, you have to admit, a pretty amazing place. Maybe those of us who live here tend to take its beauty for granted, so we leave you now with shots of a beach in Homer. See you next week.